Hello everyone, and welcome back to the SNES in Chronological Order, the series where I am playing every Super Nintendo game in US release order and evaluating them with 30 years of game design hindsight. In the last episode, we looked at a bunch of heavy hitters released for the Super Nintendo's first holiday season, and today we'll be finishing out 1991. I think this may be the first block of games where I really haven't played any of them before recording, so that's pretty exciting. Let's get started with Lagoon. You know, I usually skip these long intros of games in my footage, but I want you to just watch this imagery with this music. The first time I saw it, it just felt so disjointed to me. Anyways, here's Lagoon. It's definitely an old video game. It's a little hard to understand the text, as in what you're supposed to do is not exactly obvious. After you talk to some villagers in town, you get some money to buy some gear, and you're sent to a cave to rescue a guy. The way this game does combat? I guess you can call it combat, is weird to me. Your sword strike is very short, and the way you line up with striking enemies doesn't exactly feel like it works sometimes. In the entire first dungeon, there are only 3 types of enemies. Also, the first dungeon looks identical to itself in a lot of places, making it very easy to get lost. I'm not sure if this was by design or not, and I actually managed to get to the top of the dungeon fine, but getting out was a nightmare. I had to look up a map as I took a break between getting to the top and coming down out of the dungeon. Speaking of coming down, the first thing you do in this game is an escort mission. It isn't actually much of an escort mission, as it doesn't appear the person you're escorting can actually be hurt, but he does walk very slowly. After finally managing to get him out of the mine, a lady gives you a key to go back into the mine to fight her boss. I tried this fight like a dozen times, and I think I managed to hit the boss around 3 times in total across those dozen times. Most of the time, this happened. I thought this game was cute, I guess. I can appreciate what they're going for here, but the execution seems to be a bit lacking. Feel free to check this game out if you want, but it's too slow and feature-light an hour in for me to want to keep playing. I've got a lot more interesting stuff in my backlog than what I've seen here. Super Baseball Simulator 1000 is a baseball game, not MLB licensed. I read the manual before I played, but I'm gonna be real with y'all, I understood nothing of what I read. Me and early baseball games really don't mix. Here's what happened on average when I batted. And don't even get me started on fielding. I played as 2 different teams, and each time my players felt like they had lead in their feet. I think this game is visually and gameplay-wise not as good as Super Bases Loaded. I'm sorry, but I don't even have anything else interesting to say about it. Pass on this one. Or try it out on the Switch Online SNES app. I Don't Run Your Life. You might be able to find more here than I did, as this game appears to be popular with people who like retro sports games. So, I'm pretty sure Super Off-Road is some kind of arcade game port. I just looked it up and I'm correct. I've seen some people playing this game in an arcade. It was a 3-player racing game set up from the 80s. Very different than modern arcade cabinets. It's a cool artifact to look at, just like this game. I want to note I was going to put a picture of the Super Off-Road arcade cabinet in the footage so you could see it, but I could not find a fair use, royalty-free picture of the arcade cabinet, so please maybe just look it up after this video if you want to see what it looked like. In this game, you race around a track. Most of the time, you have to figure out how to approach the track the way the game wants, but it's typically a thing you can intuit if you're used to racing games. This game controls infinitely better than RPM racing, and the driving itself is kind of fun, but I never even came close to losing a race after upgrading my car a little bit, and when I got max upgrades, I would often lap the AI before finishing the race. The game flow is race, get money, upgrade, race again, and no season points or anything. At some point, the tracks just start recycling themselves, where you get some repeat tracks and some new tracks. I think this just goes infinitely. I'm not sure. I'm also not sure if there is any goal besides each course having its own best time for you to beat. This game is the first game I played in this series where I quit playing early not because I couldn't find any success, but I was just bored of winning race after race. Maybe this is worth checking out if you want to see a cool old racing game, but as I'm writing the script, I'm struggling to remember pretty much anything about this game but what it looks like and how trucks sometimes looked funny bouncing around. It entertained me for 30 minutes. Super Castlevania IV is a really good video game, isn't it? Controls are intuitive, you can whip in multiple directions, graphics are pretty good. I will say in some of level 1 I struggled with looking at some of the colors, but it actually ended up reminding me of Castlevania 1, so I didn't mind it very much. I don't have much to say about the mechanics of the game. You have a whip, you can find upgrades to your whip and candles that make it stronger, I think. I actually didn't realize those things were upgrades initially. I thought they were trap items that held you in place. I also don't recall exactly how I realized they were upgrades. It's a visual thing, but eventually I did. You can find secret wall chicken. I didn't find the first 2 levels particularly challenging besides the first boss and generally getting used to the game in the first level. Honestly, to a point, I don't remember the second level well at all. I remember there was water, but that's about it, because I beat it relatively easily, including beating the boss on the first try. But as it appears to be a pattern with games for me lately, I struggled with the 3rd level. Definitely my fault though. There's this particular jump in 3-2 that I repeatedly bonked Simon's head on while trying to make, which throws you into the abyss. I'm pretty sure they did this on purpose, but I died there like 5 times, so at some point I should have learned. I actually did learn. I got really mad at myself, to be honest. And I didn't mind replaying 3-1 a few times to get back to 3-2, even though 3-2 was the bane of my existence during my hour play session. I found the precision platforming in this section to be quite enjoyable. Even though I like the number go up of more modern Castlevania games like Symphony of the Night or Aria of Sorrow, I think most Castlevania games have their own unique flair to offer something for most people who enjoy these style of games, and this one is no exception. If you like this kind of 2D action platforming and haven't played Super Castlevania IV before, you owe it to yourself to at least try it for a bit. So, Home Alone is a game I only know about because it was in one of the more modern AVGN episodes that I enjoyed. It's a puzzle platformer, I guess. You're Macaulay Culkin. Dudes are in your house trying to steal your stuff. The way the levels function is you find stuff to shove down I wrote in my script trash chute, but I think it's technically a laundry chute. I would never know what this is. I have never had enough money in my life to know what having a multi-story house is like, but that's besides the point. Once you've shoved everything down the chute, you experience something that made me think, what in the licensed video game design is this? You have weapons that appear to do literally nothing in any situation. Dealing with enemies involves something that could be described as solving puzzles. Whether or not you can jump on an object is completely inconsistent, even in the first 2 levels of the game. I'm specifically referencing some drawers that you can sometimes jump on and sometimes not, depending on whether or not the developers want you to be able to jump on it. This is horrendous game design at a fundamental level. I did not see a reason to continue playing this game after the first game over. It's boring, repetitive schlock. I also generally dislike this particular cartoon art style for some reason. I always have, actually. I'm glad it kind of died out. D-Force is a mediocre 1942 ripoff. So I'm gonna hop off script here because I realize after writing this two things. One, I know way too much about old video games, but two, the way I worded this makes it seem like I think 1942 is a very good video game, and I just want to clarify that I don't. 1942, if you don't know what it is an old Capcom arcade game, top-down military-style shooter, which is fine for the age that it was made in, but the sequels to 1942 and other top-down shooters are much better than 1942. It's just 1942 was the thing that popped in my mind immediately when I saw this game. So, D-Force is a futuristic military top-down shooter that is fairly bare bones. You shoot airplanes, you pick up upgrades, you die ridiculously quickly. So this is another one of those games where you can just die 3 times in a row and get a game over without too much you can actually do about it, unless you're employing some kind of pro gamer strats that I'm obviously too stupid to comprehend. Here is what happened when I finally made it to the first boss. I don't know, this game kind of sucks. The art's mediocre, the animations don't look good. Just look at it. I like every shooter I've played before in this series, including Hyperzone, more than this. This is the last game I've got footage for, so let's cut to the kind of outro where we will technically still have one more game to talk about. Miracle Piano is a game I couldn't play in this series, mainly because it's a very peripheral-based piece of software, and by peripheral I mean a MIDI keyboard. I don't own a MIDI keyboard. I have a $5 keyboard I picked up from a thrift store that I never have time to play because I make YouTube videos, which is technically true of all my instruments, but that's besides the point. Which means I really have no way of trying out any version of the software. But it's also, by my definition, not exactly a game, as its primary focus is piano practice, which is like Rocksmith is a guitar practice school. Yeah, it's still a game, but you're playing guitar and using a piece of software to do it. Shout out to the House of the Dead parody game in Rocksmith 2014, though. This was a strange end to the year, to be honest. I found most of these games pretty hard to get into, and this selection honestly made me appreciate Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Darius Twin a lot more in retrospect, because those games are several levels above everything here but Super Castlevania IV, in my opinion. In the next episode, we will be trying out all the games that came out in January and February of 1992, as not many games came out in that time period. We will be playing Ys 3, which I kind of feel like Lagoon wanted to be an Ys game, but just couldn't get there. But we'll see that next time. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel to continue on this journey through the Super Nintendo's library with me. If you haven't seen the other episodes yet, I've got a playlist for you to check that out. Have a good day!